What if one woman's belief could change how the world understands beauty? Not beauty as luxury, not beauty as perfection, but beauty as confidence. Today's story is about persistence, intuition, and trust. It is about a woman who started with nothing more than a cream, a belief, and the courage to stand behind it. Welcome to An Amazing Storyteller. On this channel, we share true, inspiring stories that help you improve your English fluency naturally just by listening. Before we begin, please like this video, share it with someone learning English, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. And here's a question for you. Do you believe confidence can be learned, or is it something we are born with? Tell us in the comments. Now, take a deep breath, listen carefully, and let this story unfold. This is the true story of Estée Lauder. Before Estée Lauder became a global beauty icon, before her name appeared on luxurious bottles and glowing counters around the world, her story began in a very ordinary place. Estée Lauder was born as Josephine Esther Mentzer in a modest immigrant family in New York. There was nothing glamorous about her early life. No famous connections, no inherited business, just a small home, hard-working parents, and a young girl quietly observing the world around her. From an early age, Estée noticed something important. People wanted to feel good about themselves. Not just rich people, not celebrities, ordinary women. Women who worked hard, cared for their families, and still wanted to feel confident when they looked in the mirror. One of the biggest influences in her life was her uncle, John Schatz, a chemist who made skincare products at home. His kitchen was like a small laboratory. Estée watched him mix creams, test formulas, and talk about how skin reacts differently for each person. This moment mattered more than it seemed. While others saw messy jars and strange smells, Estée saw possibility. She learned that beauty was not magic, it was care, consistency, and understanding. She believed that if a product truly worked, people would talk about it. Trust would spread naturally. As a young woman, Estée didn't dream of fame. She dreamed of results. She believed that skincare should do something real, improve the skin, build confidence, create loyalty. She also believed in something very bold for her time. Every woman can be beautiful if she is taught how to care for her skin. This idea was simple but powerful, and it became the foundation of everything she would build later. At this stage, Estée had no company, no brand, and no logo. But she had three things that would change her future: curiosity, discipline, and an unshakable belief in her product. This was not the beginning of a beauty empire yet. This was the beginning of belief. Every big journey begins with a small, uncomfortable step. For Estée Lauder, that step was not glamorous, it was personal, and it was risky. After learning about skincare from her uncle and believing deeply in the power of good products, Estée faced a question that many people struggle with. What if I believe in this, but no one else does? She didn't have investors. She didn't have a shop. She didn't even have a brand name yet. What she had was confidence in her creams. Estée began doing something very simple. She started giving her products to people she knew. Friends, family, neighbors, women at beauty salons. She watched their reactions closely. She listened. She adjusted formulas. She improved them again and again. She didn't sell aggressively. She demonstrated. Estée believed that if women could feel the difference on their skin, they wouldn't need convincing. The product would speak for itself. She often visited beauty salons and offered free treatments. Not to make money, but to build trust. While working on their skin, she explained what she was doing and why. She educated them patiently. This was unusual at the time. Most beauty products were sold as mysterious, expensive secrets. Estee did the opposite. She shared knowledge. She taught women how to care for their skin at home. Slowly, something powerful happened. Women began asking for her products by name. They told their friends. They came back. This was not marketing as we know it today. This was human connection. Estee also learned an important lesson very early. People don't buy products, they buy confidence. She noticed that when women felt listened to, they trusted her more. When they understood their skin, they stayed loyal. There were many moments of doubt, moments when sales were slow, moments when rejection felt personal. But Estee didn't quit because she wasn't chasing quick success. She was building belief, one person at a time. By the end of this phase, she still wasn't famous. She still wasn't rich, but she had something far more valuable: real customers, real results, and growing word-of-mouth trust. This small beginning laid the foundation for something much bigger. As word spread and more women began asking for Estee's products, she realized something important. Her creams worked. People trusted her. But trust alone was not enough. If Estee wanted to grow, she had to answer a difficult question. Where should people discover her brand? At that time, most beauty products were sold in pharmacies or small shops. Luxury department stores were reserved for established names, not newcomers with homemade creams. But Estee didn't want to be everywhere. She wanted to be in the right place. She believed that where a product is sold shapes how people see it. So instead of aiming for small stores, she made a bold decision. She targeted high-end department stores, places where elegance, quality, and trust already existed. This choice was risky. Store managers were skeptical. They didn't know her name. They didn't understand why an unknown woman deserved space next to famous brands. Many said no. But Estee didn't argue. She didn't beg. She didn't lower her standards. She did something smarter. She offered free demonstrations. Estee asked for a small counter just for a short time. She promised she would personally treat customers and prove that her products worked. She was confident enough to let the experience speak. When she finally got a chance inside a department store, she didn't waste it. She stood at the counter herself. She greeted customers warmly. She applied creams carefully. She explained every step with calm confidence. And something unexpected happened. Women stopped. They watched. They asked questions. They tried the products. They didn't feel pressured. They felt understood. Sales didn't explode overnight, but they were steady. And more importantly, customers remembered her. Store managers noticed something too. People stayed longer at Estee's counter. They came back. They asked for her by name. This was a turning point. Estee had proven that her brand belonged in premium spaces, not because of price, not because of advertising, but because of experience. She understood something most people missed. A product becomes luxury when it makes people feel special. By choosing where to be seen and how to be experienced, Estee Lauder quietly positioned herself for long-term success. She was no longer just selling skincare. She was creating a feeling, and that feeling was about to change everything. By now, Estee had learned something crucial. People didn't fall in love with her creams just because they worked. They fell in love because she made them feel seen. In a world where products sat silently on shelves, Estee did the opposite. She believed beauty was personal, and personal things should never feel rushed or distant. So she leaned into what others ignored: human connection. When a woman approached her counter, Estee didn't start by selling. She started by listening. She asked gentle questions. How does your skin feel in the morning? What worries you most when you look in the mirror? Do you struggle with dryness or tiredness or confidence? Then, slowly and carefully, she touched their skin, not carelessly, not quickly, but with intention. This was unusual at the time. Most salespeople avoided touch. They feared complaints. They feared mistakes. Estee understood something deeper. Touch creates trust. When she applied a cream herself, customers felt the texture. They smelled it. They felt how their skin responded in real time. This wasn't advertising. This was experience. She spoke softly, explained simply, and never exaggerated. She didn't promise miracles. She promised care. And women believed her because they could feel the difference. Another bold idea followed. Estee noticed that once someone tried her product, they were far more likely to buy it later. So she introduced a concept that changed the beauty industry forever. She began giving free samples, not tiny advertisements, real samples, enough to try at home, enough to trust. Many people thought she was wasting money. Why give away something you worked so hard to make? But Estee saw it differently. She believed if the product is good, it will sell itself. And she was right. Women returned. They asked for the same cream. They told friends. They brought sisters, neighbors, and coworkers. One customer turned into 2. 2 turned into 10. Without loud ads, without celebrity endorsements, without pressure. Just trust, touch, and time. This approach built something far more valuable than quick sales. It built loyalty. Estee wasn't just creating customers. She was creating relationships. And those relationships would soon carry her brand far beyond a single counter and into the world. Something remarkable was happening. Women weren't just buying Estee's products. They were coming back. They returned weeks later, sometimes months later, with familiar smiles. They asked for the same cream. They trusted her recommendations. They remembered her name. And slowly, that name began to spread. At first, it moved quietly, from one woman to another, from a friend to a sister, from a mother to a daughter. This is the cream I told you about. You should talk to Estee. She really understands skin. This kind of growth didn't come from advertisements. It came from word of mouth. Estee paid close attention. She noticed that when people trusted her, they didn't just want one product. They wanted guidance. They wanted a routine. They wanted someone to help them feel confident in their own skin. So she expanded carefully. She didn't rush to create dozens of products. She focused on improving what already worked. Better formulas, better textures, better results. Quality always came first. As demand grew, Estee faced a new challenge. She could no longer handle everything alone. More counters showed interest. More stores wanted her products. More women were asking for her by name. This was the moment where many people lose control. They grow too fast. They compromise. They let others make decisions for them. Estee chose a different path. She stayed involved. She trained staff personally. She taught them how to listen, not just sell. How to touch skin with care. How to explain products simply and honestly. She believed that the experience mattered as much as the product. If a woman felt rushed or ignored, the magic was gone. If she felt understood, she would return. Slowly, Estee's name transformed into something bigger than a person. It became a promise of quality, a promise of care, a promise that beauty could be thoughtful, not intimidating. By the time her products appeared in more prestigious stores, they already carried trust with them. Estee Lauder was no longer just a woman behind a counter. She was becoming a brand. And with that growth came a new realization. If she wanted to go further, she would need to think not just like a creator, but like a leader. That realization would soon push her to take her boldest steps yet. As the brand grew, Estee understood something crucial. Trust could not remain accidental. It had to become intentional. What worked so well at one counter needed to work everywhere. The same care, the same warmth, the same confidence. Because customers didn't fall in love with a bottle. They fell in love with how they were treated. So Estee began building a system around her philosophy. She created clear rituals for how products were introduced, how skin was examined, how advice was given. Nothing felt scripted, but everything had purpose. Saleswomen were no longer just sellers. They became beauty advisors. Estee trained them personally whenever possible. She showed them how to apply creams gently, how to speak calmly, how to ask questions before offering solutions. Listen first, she would say. Skin will tell you what it needs. This approach was revolutionary at the time. Most brands focused on pushing products. Estee focused on building relationships. She also insisted on consistency. A woman visiting a counter in New York should feel the same care as a woman in Chicago, the same attention, the same respect. This consistency turned customers into loyal followers. They didn't just trust Estee, they trusted the brand. Behind the scenes, Estee was learning fast. She studied packaging, she refined pricing, she paid attention to which products women repurchased. Every detail mattered. Growth was no longer just about passion, it was about structure. And with structure came strength. The Estee Lauder name was now supported by something powerful, a repeatable experience that could grow without losing its soul. But Estee wasn't satisfied yet. She knew that to become truly iconic, her brand needed more than loyal customers. It needed visibility. And that realization would lead her to one of the most strategic moves of her career. Estee understood something many brands overlooked. Trust builds loyalty, but visibility builds belief. A woman might love a product privately, but when she sees it admired publicly, that love deepens. So Estee turned her attention to where influence truly lived. Department stores. Not just as places to sell, but as stages. She was incredibly selective about where her products appeared. Estee Lauder would not be everywhere. It would be in the right places. High-end department stores, prestigious counters, spaces that already carried trust and aspiration. If a woman saw Estee Lauder beside respected luxury brands, she would assume one thing: this belongs here. Placement became strategy. But Estee went further. She believed products should never sit quietly on shelves. They needed conversation, demonstration, presence. So she insisted on beautifully designed counters. Clean, elegant, inviting. Nothing loud, nothing cheap, just quiet confidence. And at the center of every counter stood a trained advisor, ready to educate, not pressure. Estee also understood the power of repetition. Seeing the brand once created curiosity. Seeing it again created familiarity. Seeing it consistently created trust. Soon, Estee Lauder was no longer a discovery. It was an expectation. Customers began asking for it by name. Retailers noticed. More space was given. More locations opened. More opportunities followed. Visibility created credibility. Credibility created demand. And demand changed everything. The brand was no longer chasing customers. Customers were coming to it. But Estee knew this was only the beginning. Because visibility inside stores was powerful. But visibility in culture? That was transformative. And that realization would soon push Estee Lauder into a world far larger than department store counters. Once Estee Lauder secured trust inside department stores, a new question emerged. How do you reach women before they walk into the store? Estee's answer was simple but bold. You meet them where they already look. Magazines, newspapers, publications women trusted and admired. At the time, beauty advertising followed one rule: be loud, be exaggerated, promise miracles. Estee rejected that approach. She believed beauty was not about shouting, it was about confidence. So her advertising looked different. Clean layouts, minimal text, elegant imagery. No chaos, no desperation, just quiet authority. The message was subtle but powerful. This product doesn't need to convince you. It already knows its worth. Women noticed. The ads felt aspirational, yet approachable. luxury without intimidation. Estee also understood consistency, the same tone, the same elegance, the same visual language. Over time, the brand became recognizable even before the name was read. This created familiarity, and familiarity created trust. But Estee didn't stop at print. She aligned her brand with women who represented sophistication, actresses, socialites, public figures, not as distant icons, but as reflections of confidence and poise. When women saw these faces, they didn't think, "I'll never be her." They thought, "I could become a more confident version of myself." That emotional connection mattered, because Estée Lauder was no longer just selling skincare, it was selling possibility. And once a brand enters the public imagination, it stops being optional. It becomes desirable. The company's name began to carry weight, not just in stores, but in culture. Estée Lauder was becoming more than a brand. It was becoming a symbol of modern beauty. And that growing influence would soon open doors far beyond skincare into a future of expansion few could have predicted. As Estée Lauder's visibility grows, the brand begins to stand out for another reason. It doesn't just sell products, it teaches. Estée understands something most brands overlook. Women don't want to be told they need beauty. They want to understand how beauty works for them. So the brand leans deeper into education. Beauty advisors are trained carefully, not to rush, not to pressure, but to listen. They explain skincare routines. They demonstrate application. They answer questions patiently. Every interaction feels personal. This transforms the shopping experience. Buying Estée Lauder no longer feels like a transaction. It feels like guidance. Women leave counters not just with products, but with knowledge. And knowledge creates confidence. Confidence creates loyalty. Estée also encourages one-on-one consultations, a rare idea at the time. Customers feel seen, understood, respected. This approach builds something powerful, trust that lasts beyond trends. Word spreads quietly. Women recommend the brand to friends. Mothers introduce it to daughters. Beauty becomes a shared experience. And that emotional bond proves stronger than any advertisement. Behind the scenes, the company grows more structured. Training systems improve. Product development accelerates. Standards remain uncompromising. Estée Lauder is no longer just innovative. It is disciplined. This balance, warm customer experience paired with rigorous quality, sets the brand apart. Competitors try to copy the products, but they struggle to copy the feeling. Because Estée Lauder has built something deeper than formulas. It has built relationships. And relationships, once formed, are incredibly difficult to replace. The brand is no longer asking customers to choose it. Customers are choosing it on their own. That shift changes everything. Because when trust becomes habit, growth becomes inevitable. And Estée Lauder is now ready to move beyond a single category, toward a future of expansion, innovation, and global ambition. With trust firmly established at home, Estée Lauder begins to think bigger, much bigger. The brand has proven it can win loyalty in the United States. Now, a new question arises. Can this philosophy work everywhere? Estée believes it can. But she also understands something crucial. Beauty is universal, yet culture is not. So expansion is not rushed. It is intentional, carefully planned. The company studies international markets, skin tones, climate, customs, preferences. They do not assume one formula fits all. Instead, they adapt without compromising quality. Europe becomes the next frontier. Luxury there is traditional, heritage-driven, skeptical of newcomers. But Estée Lauder does not arrive loudly. She arrives confidently. Department stores in London and Paris begin to carry the products. Counters look familiar, yet refined. the same focus on education, the same emphasis on experience. Beauty advisors are trained again, this time with cultural nuance. The response is cautious at first, then curious, then loyal. Women recognize the difference. This is not a brand chasing glamour. It is a brand offering understanding. As Europe opens its doors, other markets follow. Asia, the Middle East, new regions with their own expectations of beauty. Each market is approached with respect. Products evolve, packaging adapts, messaging shifts, but the core remains unchanged. Quality, trust, personal connection. This global mindset changes the company internally. Estée Lauder is no longer a domestic success story. It is becoming an international house of beauty. Leadership expands, operations grow more complex, vision stretches further. And yet, the brand never loses its center. Every expansion decision returns to one guiding idea. Would this make the customer feel understood? If the answer is no, the idea is reworked. If the answer is yes, the brand moves forward. This thoughtful expansion sets Estée Lauder apart. While others chase scale, it builds roots. And those roots, planted carefully across continents, begin to support something extraordinary. A beauty empire with a human heart. The world is now watching, and Estée Lauder is just getting started. As Estée Lauder's global presence grows, a new realization takes shape. One brand, no matter how strong, cannot speak to everyone. Women are different. Their needs are different. Their definitions of beauty are different. And Estée understands this deeply. So instead of forcing one identity worldwide, the company makes a bold strategic move. It begins to build a family of brands, each with its own voice, its own purpose, its own audience. This is not about dilution. It is about precision. The company starts acquiring and developing brands that serve distinct beauty philosophies. Some focus on skincare science, some on artistry and color, some on luxury, some on simplicity. Each brand is allowed to remain authentic. They are not absorbed, they are supported. Behind the scenes, Estée Lauder companies provide resources, research, distribution, and global infrastructure. But creatively, each brand stays independent. This approach changes the industry. Instead of competing against every emerging brand, Estée Lauder welcomes them if they align with quality and integrity. Consumers notice the difference. They don't feel sold to, they feel understood. If one brand doesn't speak to them, another does, yet all carry the same invisible promise: excellence, trust, consistency. Internally, this strategy requires discipline. Leadership becomes more complex, decision-making more layered, coordination more demanding, but the payoff is powerful. The company becomes resilient. Trends may change, markets may shift, but with multiple brands serving multiple needs, the foundation remains strong. This multi-brand vision transforms Estée Lauder from a successful beauty label into a true beauty house, an ecosystem, a platform for long-term growth. More importantly, it reflects Estée's core belief: beauty is personal, and no single definition should ever limit it. With this structure in place, the company is no longer just expanding geographically, it is expanding strategically, preparing for decades ahead, not just the next season. And that preparation will soon face its greatest test. Because growth, when paired with scale, demands something even more difficult than vision: leadership that can endure beyond its founder. Every great brand faces a moment that cannot be delayed. The moment when its future must exist beyond its founder. For Estee Lauder, this moment arrives quietly but decisively. The company is growing faster than ever. More brands, more countries, more complexity. One person, no matter how visionary, cannot guide everything alone. Estee understands this truth, and instead of resisting it, she prepares for it. Leadership begins to shift from personality to system, from intuition alone to structure supported by experience. Her sons step into key roles, bringing new perspectives, business discipline, and long-term thinking. This is not a symbolic transition. It is a working one. Responsibilities are clearly defined, decisions are distributed, accountability becomes essential. Yet something crucial remains unchanged: the culture. The values Estee built, quality, trust, respect for women, and obsession with excellence, are protected fiercely. New leaders are not asked to reinvent the soul of the company. They are asked to carry it forward. This balance is not easy. Family businesses often struggle here. Egos clash, visions diverge. But Estee insists on one principle. The brand comes before the name, before titles, before legacy, before emotion. This mindset strengthens the organization. Executives are chosen not because of lineage, but because of competence. Merit matters. Consistency matters. The company becomes more professional, more scalable, more future-ready. At the same time, Estee remains deeply involved. She mentors, she observes, she guides, without controlling. She knows when to speak and when to step back. This is leadership of a different kind, not dominance, stewardship. By building leaders who can outlast her presence, Estee Lauder ensures something rare: continuity. The company no longer depends on a single voice. It depends on shared values. And that prepares it for a future that will bring new markets, new competition, and new challenges. Because legacy is not what you create. Legacy is what survives when you are no longer in the room. And Estee Lauder is quietly making sure it will survive and thrive. As the beauty industry evolves, competition intensifies. New brands appear, consumer preferences shift, innovation accelerates. Standing still is no longer an option. Estee Lauder understands something crucial. Growth does not always mean creating from scratch. Sometimes, growth means recognizing greatness in others and giving it room to flourish. This insight leads to a defining strategy: acquisition. The company begins to identify brands with strong identities, loyal audiences, and clear purpose, not to absorb them into sameness, but to elevate them. Each acquisition is deliberate. Brands are chosen not just for profit, but for alignment. They must value quality. They must respect the consumer. They must stand for something real. When Estee Lauder brings a brand into its portfolio, it does not erase its personality. It strengthens it. Creative teams remain independent. Brand voices stay distinct. What changes is scale. Access to better research, stronger distribution, global reach. This approach creates a powerful ecosystem. Luxury skincare, prestige makeup, fragrance, dermatology-driven brands. Each serves a different audience, but all reflect the same underlying commitment to excellence. The company is no longer a single brand house. It becomes a beauty authority. Resilient, diversified, forward-looking. This strategy also reduces risk. If trends shift in one category, another grows. If one market slows, another accelerates. Strength comes from balance. Internally, this expansion changes the organization. Leadership becomes more sophisticated, systems become more refined, Decision-making becomes data-informed without losing intuition. Externally, the industry takes notice. Estee Lauder is no longer just competing, it is shaping the landscape. Smaller brands aspire to join its portfolio. Retailers trust its vision. Consumers feel the consistency. Yet through all this expansion, one rule remains unbroken. Never compromise trust. Every product must deliver. Every promise must be honored. Because Estee Lauder knows something timeless. In beauty, reputation is fragile, and growth without integrity destroys what success builds. By choosing collaboration over domination and stewardship over control, the company expands its influence without losing its soul. This chapter marks a transformation, from brand builder to brand curator. And that shift sets the stage for global dominance without uniformity. Because the future of beauty does not belong to one look, it belongs to many voices, guided by one standard. As Estee Lauder's portfolio grows stronger, its ambition stretches beyond borders. The company is no longer thinking in terms of countries, it is thinking in terms of people. Different cultures, different skin types, different definitions of beauty. To grow globally, Estee Lauder understands one essential truth: beauty is personal. What works in New York may not resonate in Tokyo. What succeeds in Paris may need rethinking in Mumbai. So instead of exporting a single standard, the company adapts. Local research teams are built, regional experts are trusted, products are reformulated, marketing messages refined. The goal is not to impose beauty, but to understand it. This approach transforms global expansion into local connection. In Asia, skincare science takes center stage. In Europe, heritage and craftsmanship matter deeply. In emerging markets, education becomes key. Estee Lauder listens before it speaks. Retail strategies also evolve. Luxury department stores, selective boutiques, travel retail in airports. Each channel is chosen carefully. Because where a product is sold matters as much as how it is made. Training becomes a priority. Beauty advisors are no longer just sellers, they are educators. They learn skin concerns, they learn ingredients, they learn how to build trust. This human connection becomes one of Estee Lauder's greatest strengths. Customers do not just buy products, they feel guided. As global presence expands, the brand's reputation deepens. Estee Lauder is seen as aspirational, but approachable. Prestigious, yet personal. Financial growth follows. Markets diversify. Revenue streams stabilize. The company becomes less vulnerable to regional downturns. But beyond numbers, something more important happens. Estee Lauder becomes a global citizen, a company that respects difference while upholding standards, a brand that adapts without losing identity. This balance is rare, and it becomes a competitive advantage. Because in beauty, the future does not belong to the loudest voice, it belongs to the most understanding one. This chapter solidifies Estee Lauder's place not just on shelves around the world, but in the daily lives of millions. And it prepares the company for an even greater transformation ahead. Because the next era of beauty will not be defined by products alone, but by connection, inclusion, and purpose on a global scale. With a strong global foundation in place, Estee Lauder turns its attention inward, not to slow down, but to go deeper. The beauty industry is evolving faster than ever. Ingredients matter more. Science matters more. Consumers ask questions they never asked before. And Estee Lauder is ready. Research and development become central to the company's strategy, not as a marketing story, but as a core belief. Labs expand, scientists are recruited, Long-term research replaces short-term trends. Skincare especially takes the lead. Estée Lauder understands something powerful. Makeup may attract attention, but skincare builds trust. New formulations focus on efficacy, on visible results, on skin health, not just appearance. Breakthrough ingredients are studied carefully. Delivery systems are refined. Testing becomes more rigorous. Every product must earn its place. At the same time, innovation is not limited to formulas. Packaging evolves, textures improve, sensory experience becomes intentional. How a product feels, how it absorbs, how it fits into a daily routine, nothing is accidental. Technology also begins to play a role. Data helps identify emerging needs, consumer feedback loops tighten, trends are observed early and responded to thoughtfully. But Estée Lauder avoids one major trap. It does not chase novelty for attention. Innovation must serve the customer. If it does not improve skin, confidence, or experience, it does not move forward. This discipline protects the brand. While competitors release fast, Estée Lauder releases right. The result is credibility. Consumers begin to associate the brand with effectiveness, not hype, with reliability, not noise. Dermatologists take notice. Industry experts pay attention. Loyalty deepens. Estée Lauder becomes more than a beauty brand. It becomes a science-backed authority. This shift strengthens every part of the business, from product launches to long-term brand equity. Because in an industry driven by promise, proof is everything. And Estée Lauder is building proof, layer by layer, formula by formula. This commitment to innovation does more than protect the present. It prepares the company for a future where beauty and science are inseparable. And the next challenge will test that preparation. Because innovation alone is not enough, leadership must evolve too. And the story is about to move from the founder's vision to the power of succession. As Estée Lauder continues to grow in scale and influence, a quiet but critical question begins to surface. What happens after the founder? Estée Lauder built the company on instinct, discipline, and personal touch. Her presence shaped decisions. Her standards shaped culture. But no brand, no matter how strong, can rely on one voice forever. Succession is not just inevitable, it is decisive. Unlike many founders who resist letting go, Estée understands something rare. For a brand to last, it must outgrow the person who created it. So the transition begins, carefully. Leadership is not handed over suddenly, it is prepared. Her son, Leonard Lauder, steps more clearly into focus. He has grown inside the business, learned its values, observed its strengths and its blind spots. But Leonard is not a copy of his mother. Where Estée leads with instinct, Leonard leads with structure. Where she trusts personal judgment, he builds systems. This difference becomes an advantage. Leonard professionalizes the organization. Processes become clearer. Decision-making becomes scalable. The company evolves from founder-led to institution-led. Yet one thing remains non-negotiable: the brand's soul. Estée does not disappear. She remains involved, observant, guiding. But she allows space. Because leadership is not about control, it is about continuity. Under the new structure, Estée Lauder becomes more resilient. It can expand without losing coherence. It can grow without dilution. It can operate globally without losing intimacy. This transition sends a powerful message to employees and partners alike. The company is not dependent on one person. It is built to endure. Many brands fail at this stage. They fracture. They lose direction. They drift. Estée Lauder does not. Because succession here is not a break, it is a bridge. A bridge between vision and longevity, between intuition and execution, between legacy and future. And that bridge will allow the company to take its next bold step, not just as a beauty brand, but as a global powerhouse. Because now, with leadership stabilized, Estee Lauder is ready to expand influence in ways it never has before. With leadership stabilized and succession in motion, Estee Lauder is no longer thinking only about products. It is thinking about power. Not loud power, not flashy dominance, but strategic influence. Leonard Lauder understands something crucial about the beauty industry. No single brand, no matter how strong, can speak to everyone. Tastes differ, ages differ, cultures differ. And trying to be everything often results in being nothing. So a new strategy takes shape. Instead of forcing one brand to stretch endlessly, Estee Lauder begins to build a portfolio, a house of brands. Each brand with its own voice, its own audience, its own identity, but all guided by the same standards of quality, research, and prestige. This is a turning point. The company starts acquiring and developing brands that serve different segments of the beauty world: luxury, professional skincare, fragrance, youth-driven cosmetics. Rather than competing with every trend, Estee Lauder positions itself above them, owning multiple paths into the market. This approach changes everything. Risk is distributed, innovation accelerates, creative freedom increases. Brands are allowed to stay authentic instead of being forced into one corporate mold. Internally, the company evolves. It learns how to manage diversity without losing cohesion, how to support creativity without chaos, how to scale without erasing personality. Externally, the industry takes notice. Estee Lauder is no longer just a successful brand. It is becoming an ecosystem. Retail partners recognize its growing influence. Competitors rethink their strategies. Consumers encounter Estee Lauder brands in more places than ever, often without realizing they are connected. This quiet expansion is powerful because it is not driven by hype, it is driven by foresight. Leonard Lauder's strategy reflects a deeper truth. Longevity does not come from being the loudest voice. It comes from being present wherever the future is forming. By the end of this phase, Estee Lauder is no longer defined by a single founder's story. It is defined by architecture. A structure strong enough to support growth, flexible enough to adapt, and refined enough to preserve prestige. The company has built its foundation wide. Now it is ready to rise higher. Because once you control not just one brand, but an entire landscape, you begin to shape the industry itself. With a strong house of brands now in place, Estee Lauder turns its attention outward. The company has mastered the American market. Now it looks to the world. But global expansion is not approached carelessly. Estee Lauder does not believe in exporting products blindly and hoping they succeed. Instead, it studies cultures. Because beauty is personal, and what works in one country may fail in another. Skin tones vary, climate changes needs, cultural ideals of beauty differ deeply. So the company adapts. In Europe, heritage and sophistication matter. In Asia, skincare science and ritual take priority. In emerging markets, trust and education are essential. Rather than forcing a single definition of beauty, Estee Lauder allows its brands to speak different languages, both literally and emotionally. Research centers expand globally. Local experts are hired. Regional insights shape formulations. This approach builds credibility. Customers feel understood, not sold to. At the same time, Estee Lauder strengthens its presence in the most influential spaces: high-end department stores, prestige retailers, professional salons. The brand does not chase mass exposure. It protects aspiration, and that restraint becomes its strength. As global visibility grows, Estee Lauder's influence moves beyond shelves. Beauty editors listen. Industry standards shift. Scientific skincare gains respect. The company invests heavily in research and development, positioning beauty not just as glamour, but as science. Ingredients are tested, claims are measured, innovation becomes a pillar, not a promise. This commitment reshapes the industry. Competitors follow, consumers become more informed, expectations rise. Estée Lauder is no longer reacting to trends, it is setting them. Culturally, the brand also evolves. Campaigns begin to feature women who represent confidence, intelligence, and individuality, not just perfection. Beauty becomes associated with strength, self-belief, and presence. This message resonates globally because confidence is universal. By the end of this chapter, Estée Lauder is firmly established as a global authority in beauty, not because it dominates loudly, but because it leads quietly, through respect, research, and relevance. The company has expanded its reach. Now it must face a new challenge. How do you remain innovative when you are already everywhere? Because the next stage of growth will not be about expansion alone, it will be about responsibility, evolution, and redefining beauty for a changing world. And that is where the story continues. As the world enters the digital age, the beauty industry changes faster than ever before. The way people discover products shifts, the way they shop transforms, and the way they define beauty evolves. For Estée Lauder, this moment brings a new test. The company has mastered department stores, luxury counters, and in-person consultations. But now, beauty conversations are happening elsewhere. On screens, on phones, on social media feeds. A new generation of consumers is emerging. They are younger, more informed, more skeptical. They do not rely on sales counters alone. They read reviews, they watch tutorials, they follow creators they trust. They ask deeper questions. What is in this product? Who is it made for? What does this brand stand for? Estée Lauder understands that prestige alone is no longer enough, so the company adapts. It invests heavily in digital platforms. E-commerce becomes a priority. Online storytelling grows more sophisticated. Websites turn into education hubs. Social channels become conversation spaces. Content becomes as important as packaging. But digital change is not just about technology. It is about mindset. The company begins listening more closely to its customers. Data replaces guesswork. Feedback shapes development. Trends are analyzed in real time. Skincare routines become personalized. Virtual consultations emerge. Technology meets tradition. At the same time, Estée Lauder embraces a broader definition of beauty. Campaigns begin to reflect diversity in age, skin tone, and identity. Not as a trend, but as reality. Beauty is no longer presented as one ideal to achieve. It is presented as something personal, expressive, and individual. This shift matters because younger consumers value authenticity more than perfection. They support brands that listen rather than lecture. Estée Lauder's long-standing commitment to research and quality now gains a new layer: transparency. Ingredients are explained. Processes are shared. Science is communicated clearly. The brand does not abandon its heritage. Instead, it reframes it. Experience meets innovation. Trust meets technology. The company proves that legacy brands can still evolve, that history does not have to mean stagnation. By embracing digital transformation and cultural change, Estée Lauder stays relevant in a crowded and fast-moving market. But relevance brings responsibility, because influence today comes with expectations. The next chapter of this story will focus on how Estée Lauder responds to the biggest questions of our time: sustainability, ethics, and the future of beauty itself. As Estée Lauder reaches its present era, the company stands not just as a beauty empire, but as a legacy. A legacy built over decades, across generations, through change, uncertainty, and reinvention. But legacy is not about the past alone. It is about responsibility. With global influence comes expectation. Consumers now ask more than, does this product work? They ask, is it ethical? Is it sustainable? Is it honest? Estée Lauder responds with intention. The company commits to sustainability goals, reducing environmental impact, improving packaging, and investing in responsible sourcing. Science and innovation are no longer focused only on performance, but on long-term impact. How products affect skin, how processes affect the planet, how decisions affect communities. At the same time, the brand deepens its commitment to inclusion. Beauty is no longer defined by one age, one skin tone, or one identity. Estée Lauder embraces representation not as a marketing strategy, but as a reflection of reality. Because beauty, at its core, has always been personal. This philosophy echoes the founder's original belief. Every woman deserves to feel confident. That belief still guides the company, even in a vastly different world. The organization continues to evolve. New technologies emerge, new markets open, new voices influence the industry. Yet one thing remains constant. Estée Lauder does not chase relevance, it earns it. By investing in research, by listening to its customers, by respecting its history while preparing for what comes next. This is why the brand endures, not because it avoids change, but because it understands it. The story of Estée Lauder is not just a story about cosmetics. It is a story about vision, about building trust through quality, about growing without losing purpose, about leadership that plans beyond itself. From a homemade cream to a global powerhouse, the journey reflects something universal. True success is not built overnight. It is built through consistency, courage, and the willingness to evolve. As the beauty industry continues to transform, Estée Lauder stands as proof that heritage and innovation do not have to compete. They can work together. And that is the final lesson of this story. A great brand does not simply follow the future, it helps shape it. Thank you for listening to this journey with an amazing storyteller. If this story inspired you, share your thoughts in the comments and let us know. What brand story should we explore next?